Hello and welcome today to the tutorial for how to create a custom content pack for expansive weaponry. Before we get started, you will need to grab the following two items. You will need Forge MDK for 1.12.2, preferably version 2847. However, if you can get any other version, they might work as well. And you will also need all the resources for your custom items, in this case, a custom gun. We have the model, the little icon for your inventory, the actual skin of the model, and the ammo icon, as well as two sounds. Now, I've already gone over how to get started with Forge 1.7.10, and for 1.12 it is a similar concept, except you will need to, of course, replace everything with the Forge MDK instead of the source for 1.7.10. Once you have that open, you can open it in IntelliJ. Make sure you have run setup the comp workspace and you have Gradle installed. I'm using Gradle 3, just like in my previous tutorial. And here we have just the default example mod for 1.12. Now, we won't need this. We will delete this default mod. We will remove it entirely. We will not use it. Now, once you've gotten here, we will need to edit the build.gradle file. Now, the build.gradle file is a list of all the prerequisites that IntelliJ or any other IDE will grab for you before running your code. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to add a custom repository. So right below here, where it says only edit below this line, we're going to add another space and insert the repositories section. Now, I will link this in the description below so you can just copy and paste it from there. We will also need to edit the dependencies list. If we scroll down to here, we can add our own custom dependencies. Now, for our use case, we need to add the dependency of expansive weaponry, or as it's more well known, modulus. So you need to make sure you have this line right here. Also, one last thing in the build.gradle file, we need to change our mappings from snapshot to stable_39. After this, we can refresh our Gradle installation, and we are ready to launch. Now that we have this, we can try and make sure that this works. We can right-click and select Debug. And we won't need this. So if everything goes according to plan, this should just load up and run. Now this is how you're going to be able to test to make sure that your content pack works properly. And this is the first step. Expansive weaponry is loading, and you don't have any content packs installed, so it will generate a custom folder for you. Now, if we go into the mods tab, we will be able to see that expansive weaponry has in fact loaded up and is ready to go. With that out of the way, we can now start on adding our custom model, which in this case is going to be the PPSH model. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new package. Now this is important because expansive weaponry only loads models from a certain package. We can type in org.raineyville.modulus.client. Sorry, the proper package name is org.raineyville.modulus.client.model. .model was omitted in the original video, but you have to have the package name correctly, otherwise the content pack will not load the models and will inevitably crash. Sorry for the confusion. Whatever the name of your pack is. So in this case, we're just gonna make it example pack. So now that we have this, we can take our model and move it here. Now, you may notice that this model is just copied straight out of FlansMod, and that would be correct. This is one of the default FlansMod models, and expansive weaponry is not 100% backwards compatible, but it shares 90% of the modeling and rendering code, so therefore all we have to do in this case is take this and replace com.flansmod with our new package statement. Now you may notice that some things still do not exist, such as in this case enum animation type, and that's because we won't need this here. Instead, we're going to define this same animation in our config file, which we're going to get to in a second. Now, one more thing to note is that if you need to change the scale of your model, we can just type in model scale and set the type ourselves. This is not defined in config files, unlike something like flansmod. And now we can remove this, and everything is perfect. Now that we've done this, we have our example pack and we have our model. We need to add our own content pack. So we are going to make our own example content pack. Let's say in this case we just name it example. Now this is going to be your root directory for your custom content pack. And in this case we need to add guns. Inside this folder we will need to make our own JSON file, so we will name it ppsh.json. Now you can name this file whatever you want as long as it's a unique file name, and it's inside the guns directory. Now inside here we are going to define our own example, so there's a few things that we are going to have to define here. First, we need to add the internal name. Internal name is going to be the name that Minecraft knows this item by. So if you use the /give command, you will need to do /give your username and then modulus : whatever you put here. This is also going to be relevant in case you need this item in any other content later on. And so in this case we are going to name this the example.ppsh. Next we are going to define our model name. In this case it's going to be example_pack.model_ppsh. Now one key difference between expansive weaponry and flansmod is that you do have to include the full model name. So if you rename this to just ppsh, then you'll have to define it the same way here. Now the next thing we are going to do is we are going to add the model skins, which, yes, you can have multiple model skins and they are going to be individual weapons, but in this case we are going to just define one. It's the same concept as paint jobs in flansmod, just this one is a bit more adequately named, I would like to believe. So we're going to add skin asset, which is the name of our file, which in this case is going to be ppsh_skin. And we are going to give it a name. Display name is default. You can change this to whatever you like. Now that we've done this, we also need to define a few more things. We have the display name, which is the more friendly version of the name. You can put whatever you want here and it will not impact anything outside of how the name is perceived. Next we need to define the weapon type, which is instead of your enum weapon animation. Now if you need a full list of weapon type animations, there is a list in the description for the documentation for what all the possibilities for these content pack JSON files are, but in this case we know it's an SMG, so we will assume that the weapon type default animation for SMGs will fit in this case. Next we have gun damage. This is the amount of damage that your gun will do per shot, and we can just set this to 2. Next we have the RPM, or rounds per minute, of your weapon, which we will just set to 600 for this one. We have fire modes, which by default is semi-automatic, but we want to make sure that this is fully automatic. And you can define more than one fire mode, which in this case we can just add semi. And we also would like to add sounds for a weapon. So we need weapon sound map. Inside this one we need the curly brackets, which will then get us to weapon fire, which is going to be a list of multiple sounds. If you'd like to define multiple, then just add another one as such. But in this case, I only have one, so we're going to do sound event, which is weapon fire. Then sound name, which in this case is the same as your file name, in this case ppsh shoot. And then we can define a sound range, which in this case is going to be 64. Sound max range, which I'll set to 96. And sound fade multiplier, which I will just set to 1. Now if you have more than one sound, you can add this here. It should look something like this. If you have ppsh shoot 2, but for my use case at the moment, we will just have 1. Now another thing you can define is weapon reload, which in this case we will add weapon reload sounds. Same concept, we do sound event, which in this case is weapon reload, and we do sound name, which in this case is going to be ppsh reload. And a last item that we must have in order to make a functional gun is accepted ammo. Now in this case it is a list, so you can have more than one accepted ammo type, but in this case we are going to do example.ppsh.ammo. So there is no convention for how you should name things, but in this case I would highly recommend using the name of your content pack and the name of your weapon. So same concept applies here. Name of your content pack, name of the gun, name of the ammo. Now speaking of ammo, we want to add the ammo. So we need to make an ammo folder. Now inside here we can make a brand new JSON file, which in this case is ppsh_ammo.json. And we have a couple things that we need to do here. In this case we are going to add display name, which is the same as it is inside weapons. ppsh 41 ammo. Then internal name, which in this case is going to be example.ppsh.ammo. And then ammo capacity, which in this case, which is for the ppsh, 71. And finally, we have two more things. We have icon name, which is going to be ppsh ammo, and skin asset, which we will just leave as default. Now for the ppsh, I forgot to add the icon name, so we can go ahead and do that. ppsh. Now that we have our configuration files done for the actual weapons, we need to add our resources, which in this case is the model skin, the sounds, and the icons for the inventory. So we are going to add the assets folder. Inside here we are going to add the modulus directory, and once we get here we have a couple things that we need to do. We need to create the skins folder. Now inside the skins folder, we are going to make our guns directory. So this is going to be exclusively for guns. And now we can add our PPSH skin inside the guns directory. Now that we're done with skins, we need to add our inventory icons. So we are going to create another directory called textures. Now inside the textures directory, we are going to have to add items. And last, we need to add the guns directory again, so that we can add the PPSH inventory icon. Now that we have done that, we also would like to add our ammo icon, which will go in the ammo directory. We can take our PPSH ammo icon, drag it over, put it inside here. And now the last two things we have left. We need to add sounds. Now we have our two sounds. They go directly into the sounds directory. There is no guns or ammo in this case. And we need to add these sounds.json so that we can load these properly into the game. Now, this one follows default Minecraft convention. We have PPSH shoot, which is the name of our sound. It's defined inside of our configuration file here. And inside here we need to list what kind of category this is, which is for player. We need to add a subtitle, which in this case doesn't matter since we will not be using subtitles, so we can just name this anything we want. Next we have the actual sounds that we have in our sounds folder, which we are going to name as modulus PPSH shoot. And we need to define one more sound, which is PPSH reload, which in this case is also going to be in the same category. Can have the same subtitle, or we can just not specify one, it doesn't matter. And the actual sounds that belong to this name, which is modulus PPSH reload. Now we have one more thing that we need to do. We need to define a moduluspack.info file. And in this case, if IntelliJ asks, it is going to be a JSON file. And here we can define our pack ID, which is a unique identifier. Now in this case, this is a unique content pack ID. It should not be the same as any other content pack. In the future, this will be a bit more drawn out so that we can have proper dependencies, unlike Flansmod. So this is for a use case if you need, let's say, a default items content pack, and you would like to share that along all of your different content packs. You have simple parts, and then you have, let's say, Modern Warfare. If you'd like to share some sort of items between those two content packs, you would be able to require them inside this moduluspack.info file. Now, none of this is currently implemented, but for the future, this will be required. For now, you can leave this out if you would like. Now, one last thing we need to do before we load this up is we need to add a lang directory, and inside we will define all of our... Now in here we can define our names. So if we go inside of our ppsh.json file, we have our internal name. So we copy this, we go here and we enter item.example.ppsh and we add .name equals ppsh41. Now we have to do the same for our ammo in order for this to be properly localized. We copy the internal name, we add item.paste.name equals ppsh41 ammo. And now, finally, we can run our client and check if our content pack is complete. And now we can tell that the content pack is properly working. We can reload our weapon, shoot it, and everything shows up and works properly. You can see our custom textures. Everything works properly. And so the easiest way to compile our end content pack is to add this. This is a custom Gradle task, and what this does is it takes all the models that you have in your custom content pack package name, and it takes every single configuration file from in here, creates a base name of example content pack. You can change this to whatever you'd like, appends content pack to the name, and calls it a job well done. Now if we run this, we will finally get our own custom content pack, which we can see here. Anyway, so I hope that this tutorial was helpful for you, and if you have any further questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, contact me on CurseForge, or in our Discord server, which will be linked in the description below. Anyway, good luck with your content packs. See you all next time.